welcome back to the channel. Today, I'm going to talk to you about 3 ways you can identify when the ego is trying to trick you. You see, let's get started right away about what the ego is and why it's actually an important part of you. You see, the ego is just one piece of like your mind. Your mind has many different pieces, such as conscious, subconscious, ego, and the ego's job, it only has one job. It's to keep you alive. Obviously, it doesn't go about that in the best way. However, when you strive for something, the ego plays a big part in it. When you're trying to advance yourself, ego actually does play a key role in that kind of stuff. So, ego is not a bad thing. It's just that when your ego is actually controlling you, can be really bad. You could do a lot of stupid things, things that you're gonna regret for the rest of your life. But you see, that part of you doesn't understand. All it knows is that it needs to keep you alive, and it does so by predicting the future based on the results of the past. So that's why whenever you do something that's unfamiliar, it's really, really scary. Because, the ego tells you it's scary because it can't predict something that it has never experienced. And so it believes that it has the potential to kill you. And so, of course, survival is a very powerful instinct. So that's the very first way you can identify if it's actually the ego trying to fool you, is that it will speak to you with fear. You see, the language of the ego is fear. It's always afraid. It's always afraid to die. Your death means its death. And I'm talking about it almost in a third person sense because it really isn't you. It's a part of you. Like a finger is part of my hand. Like this finger could be the ego. But without the rest of the hand, this finger is nothing. But so it needs to keep the rest of this whole alive. And it only does that one way, by giving you fear in order to dissuade you from doing certain activities such as something unknown. So where you get a lot of this information is in this book. It's called The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle. It goes into a ton of detail on exactly how the ego actually manipulates you by pulling on your own memory, sending you like images and movies and suggestions. And it never identifies itself as an ego or anything else. It always acts as if it's you. And that's where the deception comes in play. Because ego is like a finger on my hand. Without the other parts of the hand moving, the one finger can't do anything on its own. So it has to convince you that it is you in order to get you to do what it wants. And for what its job is, it's doing its job, but that job can hurt you greatly because it'll make you do stupid things, including staying where you're at. You see, when it's telling you fear, it doesn't care that you're not where you want to be or you haven't achieved your dreams. That's not its purpose. Its purpose is to live, only to live. Not to make sure you got that house on the hill, not to make sure your kids are, well taken care of. It doesn't care about any of that stuff. All it cares about is keeping you alive. So it will try and keep you in the place that you're at currently consistently because it cannot predict the unknown, as I said. So it will always try to keep you exactly where you're at. And that's one of its key functions. And it's always to the end result of keeping you alive. So that's part number one. It will always speak in the language of fear. How you identify it, part number two, is it will use logic. It will be like, you should do this, this, and this because of this, 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 and this reason. It's very consistent with that. Very consistent. It will constantly use examples why it makes sense to do what it wants, and it'll pull memories right out of your subconscious to show you. There'll be a little movie playing out in your head, and you can actually watch this movie. You just sit back and observe your own thoughts. But that you're observing your own thoughts, you will start to notice that you can actually watch the little game it's playing. And that's really where the dynamic of power starts to shift. And the ego's not going to like this. It's going to realize what's happening. Not at first, but in a little while, it'll start to realize what's happening. Because once you identify it, you start to take your power back. You start to, realize it's not really you thinking these thoughts. It's actually a component of your own mind doing it. It's almost like my finger moving on its own, but wanting to take the hand somewhere. And I can, of course, pull the hand back, and so goes the finger, too. Can't override the will of the hand, nor can the ego override the will of the person. That's how it works. But it can fool you into believing that it is you. And you'll act in accordance with it, saying, oh, I just had those thoughts. Well, actually, you didn't. It was just a component of your mind that had those thoughts, not the you that you actually identify with. So that second reason is logic. If you're having thoughts and it's being justified with logic, then you could be pretty sure that that's actually ego talking to you. Way number three that you can identify the ego talking is that it will throw a fit. I mean, seriously, it will throw a fit. If it doesn't get its way, it's almost like a child. It will actually drum up anger. It'll literally throw a fit. You can actually watch it do it. If you identify what's going on and you don't do what it says, it'll actually drum up. You'll suddenly feel surges of anger. You're like, where the hell is this coming from? Well, that's actually your ego. It's pulling up these surges of emotion so that because you didn't do what it wanted. And remember, the job of the ego is to live. And it will throw a fit over and over and over again. And once again, in this book, if you have never picked up this book, you really should. This will tell you how to identify this in play very easily, and also what to do about it. You see, the ego is a tool. It's not like a bad thing, it's just that it was never really meant to be in control of you. So through awareness, through realizing it's not really you, you can actually take your power back because you have the final say on what you do. The ego can drum up any images or feelings or urges that it wants, but you always have the final say on what's going to happen with that. It cannot move you, but it's trying to fool you. That's what it does. It has no power. It's like a backseat driver trying to tell you how to drive your car. It can't drive it for you, but it can try and convince you to do what it says. That's the limit of its influence. Only by tricking you can it actually get you to do what it wants. It can't do anything on its own. Nothing. You have the say, and so you have the power. You have the power over your own actions. You have the power over, which direction you're going to go, whether you're going to pursue your dreams or listen to the ego and don't pursue them. You see, fear, logic, and having a little temper tantrum, key signs that the ego is trying to manipulate you. And through awareness, through just watching it in its actions, you can identify these things really easily and choose whether or not you want to actually go along with that. As I said, the ego is not always a bad thing. It's just that it's been out of control for a long time. So, whether it gets the chance to control you or to, be a partner is up to you. It will always try to control you. Just understand that. But you can use it as it is. It's a tool. And as long as you turn the power dynamic back to yourself, you can bring that tool back into your tool belt and not let it run your entire life. You can pursue your dreams, and yes, the ego will throw a fit because obviously, as I said, it's scary. The unknown is scary because it's unknown. It can't be predicted. But by identifying it and realizing that these are not your own thoughts, it radically changes their effect on you. Hugely. I mean, if someone's whispering in your ear and you believe those are what they're saying is your own thoughts, of course they're gonna have much more power than if you realize, oh, someone's just whispering in my ear. I could just choose to dismiss that. It's a very huge difference. It's a complete power shift, and in that power shift, your decisions can be better managed. Your actions will be more deliberate with better focus behind them and better thought, and you can just take control of everything. So, if you like the content I'm creating, go ahead and like, comment, and subscribe, and let's talk about ego, because it plays a huge part in everyone's life, including mine. So, until next time, later.